Welcome to Capitol Catch-Up, your guide to congressional proceedings. I am Victor.
And I am Lainey. Today, we are taking a deep dive into several newly introduced bills in the House of Representatives, as well as the latest debates and tributes recorded in the congressional record. Let us start with a series of bills focused on agricultural innovation and research.
First, we have House Resolution 7142, also known as the Advancing Cutting Edge Agriculture Act, or the ACE Agriculture Act. This bill proposes to permanently authorize and expand the Agriculture Advanced Research and Development Authority, moving it from a pilot program to a permanent fixture within the Department of Agriculture.
That is a significant step, Victor. The bill prioritizes research into critical areas like water conservation, climate resilience, greenhouse gas mitigation, and protection against plant and animal pathogens. It would increase authorized funding to $100 million annually through 2032, streamline leadership under the chief scientist, and enhance the Secretary of Agriculture's authority to recruit specialized scientific personnel.
Building on that theme of research, House Resolution 7734, the Land Grant Research Prioritization Act of 2026, aims to expand federal research and extension grant priorities for land-grant universities. This legislation targets funding for advanced mechanized harvesting technologies, artificial intelligence in farming with a focus on specialty crops, and new initiatives for managing invasive species and advancing aquaculture.
Speaking of research priorities, Representative Scholten introduced House Resolution 7665, the Friends in the Field Act. This bill proposes to amend the Food, Agriculture, Conservation, and Trade Act of 1990 to formally designate biological pest control as a high-priority area for federal research and extension grants. The goal is to support natural biological methods to mitigate crop damage and prevent foodborne illnesses, which could improve agricultural sustainability and food safety.
To ensure that the personnel on the ground are fully trained in modern agricultural science, there is House Resolution 7474, the Soil Conservation and Regeneration Education Act of 2026, or the Soil Care Act. This bill mandates that the Secretary of Agriculture establish a comprehensive training program for natural resources conservation service personnel and third-party providers.
Yes, and the curriculum would cover regenerative farming practices, soil biology, organic production, and the specific needs of underserved producers and Indian tribes, using both online courses and in-person workshops. The bill proposes $10 million in funding through 2032 to help bridge the gap between evolving soil science and practical field application.
Now let us look at how Congress is addressing crop protection and soil standards. House Resolution 7464, the Temperature Event Mitigation Policy Act, or the TEMP Act, directs the Federal Crop Insurance Corporation to research and develop a nationally available, index-based insurance policy. This is specifically designed to cover crop losses, such as those affecting citrus, berries, and vegetables, caused by frost or extreme cold. The corporation would have to submit its findings and recommendations to Congress within 1 year.
That could provide a much more robust safety net for fruit and vegetable growers. For organic farmers, House Resolution 7406, the Meeting Demand for Organic Produce Act, proposes to amend the Organic Foods Production Act of 1990. It would allow organic producers to verify the absence of prohibited synthetic substances in soil or growing media through standardized testing before planting. The Secretary of Agriculture would have to establish clear guidelines for these verification methods within 60 days of enactment.
Moving to forestry and conservation, House Resolution 7518 seeks to ensure adequate staffing and resources for specific federal research facilities. It would amend the Food, Agriculture, Conservation, and Trade Act of 1990 to require the Secretary of Agriculture to maintain a minimum staff of 50 individuals for the Institute of Tropical Forestry in Puerto Rico and 30 individuals for the Institute of Pacific Islands Forestry.
This ensures both institutions have the consistent operational capacity to conduct scientific research and knowledge exchange. On the conservation side, we have House Resolution 7330, the Driftless Area Landscape Conservation Initiative Act, or the DALCI Act. This bill directs the Secretary of Agriculture to provide financial and technical assistance to producers in the Midwestern driftless area for climate-smart agricultural practices, including soil health, carbon sequestration, woodland biodiversity, and restoring cold water stream corridors. It authorizes $5 million annually from 2027 through 2031.
To make federal conservation efforts more inclusive, House Resolution 7627, the Tribal Conservation Priorities Inclusion Act, proposes to amend the Food Security Act of 1985. It formally integrates Indian tribes into federal conservation programs like the Environmental Quality Incentives Program and the Conservation Stewardship Program, ensuring tribal governments and lands are explicitly recognized alongside state and local entities when identifying priority resource concerns.
There is also a major biosecurity measure to discuss. House Resolution 7466, the Safe Cattle Act, mandates formal cooperation between the Department of Agriculture and the Department of the Interior to combat the New World screwworm. The agencies would have 180 days to establish a memorandum of understanding to coordinate surveillance, containment, and eradication efforts targeting wildlife and non-livestock species on federal lands, with annual progress reports sent to Congress.
Let us switch gears to nutrition and public lands. House Resolution 7571, the Gus NIP Expansion Act of 2026, proposes major updates to the Gus Schumacher Nutrition Incentive Program. It introduces cooperative agreements to scale statewide incentive programs, establishes a federal cost-share waiver in persistent poverty areas, and formalizes the Produce Prescription Program. It extends program funding through 2032 and mandates a study on transitioning Produce prescription payments into health insurance programs.
On the other hand, House Resolution 7522, the Improving Access to Nutrition Act of 2026, takes a different approach to federal nutrition assistance by proposing to completely repeal existing work requirements for able-bodied adults participating in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. Proponents argue these mandates fail to reduce poverty, create administrative burdens, and disproportionately harm vulnerable populations.
For agricultural financing, House Resolution 7475, the Expedited Guaranteed Lender Pilot Program Act, proposes a pilot program at the Department of Agriculture to accelerate the approval process for bridge loans serviced by preferred certified lenders. This aims to improve efficiency for creditworthy borrowers with annual reports to Congressional Agriculture Committees and a sunset date of September 30, 2031.
Regarding public lands, House Resolution 7458, the Domestic Opportunities for Resource Exploration Act, or the Domestic OR Act, aims to streamline mineral exploration on federal public lands. It requires operators to provide a formal notice at least 15 days before starting exploration activities that disturb 25 acres or less, without commercial extraction. Federal agencies would have 15 days to review these notices.
And to keep political figures off federal recreation passes, House Resolution 7251, the Prohibit Partisan Park Passes Act, proposes to amend the Federal Lands Recreation Enhancement Act. It would prevent the use of images featuring living political figures or elected officials on the America the Beautiful National Parks and Federal Recreational Lands Pass.
Now, let us review the latest daily records from the House floor. The congressional record from June 29, 2026, highlights sharp ideological divisions. Democrats criticized the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and a new Department of Justice memo regarding the Olmstead decision, arguing these policies threaten healthcare access and disability rights. Meanwhile, Republican members emphasized federalism, advocating for states' rights, and expressed opposition to the influence of Sharia law in the American legal system. Members also discussed rising food costs and the humanitarian crisis in Sudan, alongside ceremonial recognitions for achievements in aviation, agriculture, community development, and the arts.
The congressional record from the following day, June 30, 2026, focused heavily on commemorative speeches and policy critiques. A central point of debate was the 10th anniversary of PROMESA. Representative Hernández of Puerto Rico sharply criticized the legislation, calling it a democratic tragedy that undermines local self-governance through an unelected oversight board.
The session also included tributes and community milestones, such as the 150th anniversary of Allen, Texas, the 75th anniversary of the North Texas Municipal Water District, and the 100th anniversary of the Buffalo Criterion. Members paid tribute to the late Dominic P. Strangio, and community leader Spencer Leak Jr. recognized American Legion Post 290 for hosting the Moving Wall and offered reflections on the upcoming 250th anniversary of the United States.
As we wrap up today's episode, listeners should watch out for upcoming committee actions. Several of these bills, including the Friends in the Field Act and the Improving Access to Nutrition Act, have been referred to the Committee on Agriculture, while the Prohibit Partisan Park Passes Act is under consideration by both the Committee on Agriculture and the Committee on Natural Resources. We will also monitor the progress of the USDA pilot programs and any further discussions on crop insurance research.
That is all for this episode of Capital Catch-Up. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.